To this now, Eskom's proposed 36% electricity tariff increase has been widely criticised by political parties. Some, including the DA, are questioning the methodology used by Nersa to determine the price hike. Joining us is Kevin Mileham, who is the DA Member of Parliament as well. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us this evening. A very grim and startling picture for South Africans if this tariff increase will be approved. Now, also leading to this debate that was had in Parliament yesterday, you had said that South Africa was now in the top 50% of countries with the most expensive electricity. Paint us this reality that South Africans have been subjected to of these exorbitant tariff increases over the years.
Thanks, Marcia. Yes, as time has gone by, since 2007, we've seen electricity price increases in the region of 945% over the last 17 years. And now Eskom is asking for a further 40%, 36% in this proposal, plus 4% from their regulatory clearing account, which has already been approved by Nersa. So we're seeing a significantly higher than inflation demand from Eskom for tariff increases. And as you pointed out in your poll that you're running at the moment, this is significantly impacting on the cost of living of every South African. It's forcing them to choose between electricity on the one hand and food on the table in the other. But it's also impacting on our economy because businesses are paying more for electricity. And so what's happening is that businesses and residents are choosing to look elsewhere for their electricity supply. They're putting solar panels on their roofs, for example. And as a result, it's exacerbating Eskom's death spiral. So there's a massive, massive impact of this on both South African consumers and on businesses.
And as you're mentioning now, Kevin, as well, just for those businesses who are able then to seek alternative energy, getting solar panels, for instance, but for the consumer as well, the everyday South African who has to tighten their belt, there's not much room left to tighten.
No, there isn't. And this is the major concern. You know, as you asked in your initial question, or as I pointed out yesterday in the debate, South Africa used to be considered one of the cheapest places in the world for electricity. Well, that's no longer true. We're certainly well into the top 50% of countries for electricity pricing. And so it really becomes a binary choice. Do I have petrol in my car or power in my plugs? Do I have electricity for my lights or do I have food on the table? And that's the really sad news. And it affects everybody. You know, the wealthier you are, the more electricity you use. But these price hikes are unsustainable.
Yeah, it does affect everyone, but some more than others, as we know as well. A lot of people living on, for instance, social grants as well. And even if you are wealthy and able to get that alternative energy as well, it is quite costly. But most so for the majority of people in this country who can't afford to get solar or inverters.
Correct. And this is where it becomes very, very difficult because a large number of people are receiving free basic electricity, but by no means all the people that are entitled to that free basic electricity. So the estimate is that up to 10 million South Africans are entitled to free basic electricity, but only 2 million are receiving it. And that then has an impact on municipalities' ability to deliver services. And we know that municipalities aren't paying their bills to Eskom. So it really does become a massive financial tangle that has to be resolved.
It sounds like also a bit of a catch-22, right, Kevin? Because then where does Eskom then recoup the monies that they need to ensure that they do also provide that electricity as well? But then also where will that money come from if people can't afford it?
There is a bit of a catch-22, and I'll be the first to admit that. But one of the challenges that we've had, and we've seen this over many, many years, is that Eskom is a quagmire of corruption, mismanagement and inefficiency. And I mean, your last story about Michael Lomas, it just indicates exactly how bad that was. To put this in perspective, when Nersa considers the tariff increases, and they'll tell you this, they take the inefficiencies out of the allowed revenue that Eskom can claim. However, let's use Medupi and Kusile as examples. They were supposed to come in at around 80 billion rand for each of those two plants. they came in at over 156 billion and 154 billion and 146 billion over budget. So that was nearly 300, call it 300 billion rand more that Eskom incurred in debt. And now we are paying that debt every single month. We're paying it, Eskom is paying it, and that's directly goes to the inefficiencies that we're talking about. And it results from the corruption of people like, or allegedly like Michael Lomas. Now, the debt servicing costs are not removed from the tariff. So you and I are paying that for our electricity. But here's the kicker. Over the last 10 years, Eskom has received 250-something billion rand in bailouts, and they're going to get another 250 billion rand over the next 10 years in bailouts. That's R500 billion rand that we pay as part of our taxes that government is using to bail out Eskom from its financial crisis. So we pay once in bailouts, and then we pay a second time when we buy our electricity. And that's what's killing us.
Another thing that's come up, Kevin, it also came up in the debate as well in the House, was the hypocrisy, the alleged hypocrisy by the Democratic Alliance. When you consider that in the city of Cape Town, there have been tariff increases that have been above what Nersa has recommended as well. So the accusation and the criticism here is that you are talking the talk and championing this, but also in the city that you govern, you're doing the same thing by charging a lot more for electricity.
So let's be very clear about a few things here. First of all, the city of Cape Town doesn't have the highest electricity prices of any of the metros in South Africa. And it certainly doesn't have the highest electricity prices of any municipality in South Africa. It does have more than what Nersa allowed it, but it is currently in court with Nersa on that very matter.
Why does it have more than what Nersa has allowed? Because there have also been protests about this as well, with, for instance, Lavender Hill residents complaining about the price of electricity, but all across Cape Town as well. Why are you charging more than Nersa in the first place?
So let me get to that in a second. So the first thing that we need to understand is that municipal tariffs are based on the bulk tariff from Eskom. So Eskom says, let's say Eskom is charging R1.30 per kilowatt hour. Municipalities take that R1.30 and they mark it up, and then they sell it on. And they're allowed to mark it up because they have their own electricity reticulation and distribution systems that they have to maintain. And that goes towards that. The second part of this is that electricity sales are the single biggest portion of any municipality's revenue. If you go to any municipality in the country, their electricity revenue is what they use to pay everything else. It's where they make their money. So those are the two things we need to factor in.
So are you saying that the city of Cape Town's using the electricity revenue to ensure that it also stays afloat, even though you are still charging more?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is they're using that to pay for electricity upgrades. They're using that to pay for electricity maintenance, distribution systems, etc., that they are required to provide as part of their service. What I am saying is that all municipalities use their electricity revenue to fund the rest of the service delivery projects as well. Now, the challenge that we've got in Cape Town and elsewhere is that Nersa is not allowing the municipalities to recover enough revenue. And so they have gone to court in this particular case, and they're saying, well, you only allowed us whatever percentage they allowed. We need another 1 or 2% on top of that. And that's something that we need to look into, how municipalities are funded. But that's a separate debate. This particular debate is about the bulk amount that Eskom charges, what the tariffs that Eskom charges, and how much they've increased the cost of electricity by over the decades.
And just in closing, to clarify on this as well, by saying that, look, this is a way to also generate revenue for the municipalities as well, and also conceding that there is the legal battle between the city of Cape Town and Nersa, and the city of Cape Town saying, look, we still want to increase our tariffs as well, even though on this debate you're saying, no, let's not be increasing tariffs.
So I'm not here to comment for the city of Cape Town. You need to talk to the city in that regard.
The city is run by the Democratic Alliance, Kevin.
I'm not a representative of the city. If you want to talk to the city, that's fine. You're welcome to talk to the city. They will give you their answers. What I'm saying is that as part of the budgetary process, every municipality increases their tariffs. They increase it by what Eskom has increased to them by, and maybe a little bit more. And that is part of the Nersa process. What we are saying is that the bulk tariff that is going in, the input cost that is going into every municipality is way too high. And that's where the issue is.
All right, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
That's DA MP Kevin Mileham just talking to us about that proposed tariff increase by Eskom and Nersa. But